9, 10 times their salary, right? This is where the big money is. And so with that much at stake, right, that's where management's going to focus. And then, so I pulled 3 examples. So Energizer's cash annual bonus. I set these metrics as net sales, SG&A, operating profit, and free cash flow. The reason I set those and how I believe align with the long-term shareholder and driving long-term quality earnings is that you got to grow. So net sales is important. We have to be efficient with our cost. So how we're managing operating costs such as SG&A. Operating profit, right? That's how kind of it all comes together. We have to deliver a bottom line result. And then the thing that is so important to us and what sets us apart is free cash flow, ability to generate a lot of cash, because with cash, you can invest in the business, return capital to shareholders through a dividend or share repurchase, and you can buy other companies. And so I felt that these were balanced, right? You couldn't over-index in one area just to enrich yourself, right? This speaks to how you have to deliver results the right way to promote long-term quality earnings. A couple of years ago, I was teaching this class, and I went on my soapbox talking about how bad Amazon's metrics were. And real time, I was proven wrong. Because for their stock, remember that long-term stock award, equity award, it's only restricted stock units. And what that means is that they don't have to hit any numbers. They just have to stay with the company, right? And I was like, well, that's horrible. Executives have to hit numbers. But when I thought more about it, probably the biggest risk to Amazon is competitors stealing away their talent. And so after I thought about it, is that their long-term equity award is perfectly aligned with the shareholders to ensure that their top talent stays with their company. Now, a bad example, I think, is WD-40, because their only metric is EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, for their annual and also their performance shares, their stock, long-term equity award. In 1 year, I can make EBITDA whatever I want. I can stuff the sales channel. I can cut cost. I can cut advertising. I can cut research and development. I can make EBITDA whatever I want. And so when you only see one metric, especially an earnings metric, that concerns me, because management could be tempted to do some things to enrich themselves just in a single year that could harm the long-term shareholder, right? And so that's where I want you guys to go in, identify these metrics like I have here, and then assess, is this promoting long-term earnings quality? Is this aligned with the long-term interest of a shareholder, right? I think that is important. Now, we're not going to have time for breakout groups, but I am going to quickly cover the answers and then take a couple of questions, okay? So in these breakout groups, right? And so I wanted you to go into the Church and Dwight and identify the annual incentive plan metrics for the named executive officers. Well, we did that, right? It's right here. Net sales, gross margin, EPS, cash from operations, strategic initiatives. Now, you'll notice a lot of similarities with Energizers in this because Church and Dwight's a well-run company. So I wasn't afraid to try to mirror some of their metrics as well. Stock ownership requirements. You know, you get this from the proxy. You get stock ownership requirements from the proxy. We've already talked about that. Gross margin increase from 44.1 to 41.9. Well, you get this from the MD&A section of the 10K. We saw that earlier. And then how much did the company spend in research and development? Well, you get that from the 10K, and it's the footnotes to the 10K. I'll flip to that really quickly. Because research and development is so key to driving future growth. And this is, they include it within SG&A, but they break it out separately in the footnotes. And so when I see a company like Church and Dwight increasing their investment in research and development, that tells me that they're focused on driving growth. Okay? And so let me see if there's any questions, and then we'll close up with a look ahead.
Jason, you had your hand up earlier. Did you still have a question, or you did put it down?
I did still have a question. My question was prompted by when Professor Ham said that you'll never see a CEO say, like, give up their cash bonus or like their long-term equity. and if they do work for like $1 for like their annual salary for whatever reason, is I assume that like their annual incentive plan, like the cash, and then also like their bonuses are still based off of their initial salary, not their operating, like I'll work for $1 that year.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Jason. And good to talk to you. It is based upon kind of their standard salary, not just the 1 year give up.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Ahmad, go ahead.
Yes, Professor. When you talked about tying the executive's bonus or compensation or stock to hitting certain metrics or KPIs, but at the same time, we also look for the executives to like design the budget and put their own metrics. So from your experience, like how do you find this balance? Like the CEO would put like, low revenue growth year over year just to hit their bonus. How do we manage this?
Well, because the targets are and the achievement or lack thereof is required to be disclosed in the proxy, and investors will keep them honest, right? And so if they're putting way too low a targets in that aren't aligned with driving long-term quality earnings and not aligned with shareholder expectations, it's disclosed right in the proxy, the actual performance against the targets that were set. Now, it's a year in arrears after the fact, but shareholders is that self-policing mechanism that will keep them honest from doing that.
Feng Chen, go ahead.
Hi, Professor. I think that the prior questions cover part of mine. So my question is, when they set up all these metrics, right, besides the proxy, is there any policing or any say they can do? Because I used to do accounting for stock comps for a big company. They were not performing as expected, so they decided to change the structure of the long-term incentive plan. And then they went through. I was a little surprised and like, who can influence this metrics and say, no, you cannot change it?
Yeah. And so, hey, good talking to you again, Feng Chen.
Same here.
Yeah. You're still on the hook for running a marathon with me in the future. But anyway, we'll talk about that offline. So the way that it works is that management has to propose it to the board. And there's a subcommittee of the board called the Compensation Committee. The Compensation Committee should keep management honest to make sure that they're the right metrics and challenging enough targets. And then they have to be disclosed in the proxy. Then the shareholders keep them honest. And if both those two levels are missed, then guess what? An activist investor will swoop in because the activist investor looks at these compensation metrics very, very closely because they know that that's where the dollars are. Okay? So great questions. I love the engagement during the live section. I want to close with this, and I apologize for going over just a couple of minutes, right? Make sure that you watch the Coursera videos. We're going to talk about ratios and share buybacks, the pros and cons. This is a political hot button, and I'll talk about how I've dealt with share buybacks in my career. Don't forget to take the weekly Module 2 quiz in Canvas. We will form our groups, and as soon as those groups are formed, I'm going to send you an announcement and quickly get together and get your company selections in, meeting those 3 criteria we talked about last week. And then finally, prior to the live session, please read the Under Armour case study. You will need to purchase the course pack. All that information is on Canvas in the syllabus section. So with that, thanks you guys. It was a great live session, and I'll see you next week.